Orphan helps a sick man on the street, never knowing he was a famed inventor in hiding. The words echoed in Lily's mind as she replayed the morning's events, her small fingers still tingling from the unexpected touch of the stranger's feverish hand. She hadn't planned on helping anyone today. Survival was hard enough on her own, but something about the man's eyes had pierced through her carefully constructed walls. The December wind howled through the narrow alleyways of Boston, carrying with it the scent of impending snow and the hollow promises of holiday cheer. For 12-year-old Lily Morgan, winter meant nothing but longer nights and colder days in a world that had forgotten her existence 3 years ago when the fire claimed both her parents and the only home she'd ever known. The city shelter was a last resort, a place where the rules were strict and the eyes of social workers too keen. They'd place her back in the system if they found her again. After 2 failed foster homes where she'd been treated like an unwelcome ghost, Lily had made a promise to herself. She would rather brave the streets than surrender her freedom again. She'd gotten good at surviving. Too good, perhaps. The abandoned building where she'd created a small nest of salvaged blankets and treasured books remained undiscovered. The public library provided warmth during the day, and the kindly baker on Westfield Street sometimes slipped her day-old pastries if she helped sweep the sidewalk before opening hours. Lily had constructed a precarious life on the edges of society, invisible but surviving. That Tuesday morning had begun like any other. She'd washed her face in the public bathroom of the subway station, carefully braiding her long auburn hair, the one feature her mother had always praised. Like autumn leaves dancing in the wind, she'd said, brushing it 100 strokes each night. The memory still brought a painful lump to Lily's throat. She was making her way toward the library when she spotted him, a crumpled figure slumped against the brick wall of an old apartment building. People streamed past, their eyes averted in that particular way city dwellers master when confronted with uncomfortable realities. Just another homeless person, their hurried steps seemed to say. Nothing to be done. Lily would have continued walking too. She should have. Her own situation was precarious enough without taking on someone else's troubles. But as she approached, the man let out a sound, not quite a moan, but something more vulnerable. A whimper that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken. Despite her better judgment, Lily slowed. The man wasn't like the other homeless people she'd encountered. His clothes, though rumpled and dirty, were once expensive. A wool coat with worn leather patches at the elbows, corduroys that had seen better days. His silver-streaked beard was overgrown but had been trimmed recently. Most striking were his hands, long-fingered and elegant despite the grime, with calluses that spoke of creation rather than labor. "Are you okay, mister?" The words escaped before she could stop them, hanging in the frozen air between them. The man's eyes flickered open, startlingly blue against his pallid face. For a moment they held no recognition, as if seeing through her rather than at her. Then clarity seemed to rush in, and with it a flash of something like shame. "I'm fine," he rasped, though his body betrayed him as a violent cough racked his frame. "Just resting." Lily knew a lie when she heard one. She'd told enough of them herself. The man's forehead glistened with sweat despite the bitter cold, and a tremor ran through his limbs that had nothing to do with the temperature. "You're sick." Not a question but a statement of fact. The man attempted a smile that transformed into a grimace. "Observant little thing, aren't you?" Lily should have walked away then. Every instinct honed by 3 years on the streets screamed at her to move on, to not get involved. Involvement meant complication, and complication meant danger. And yet, "I know somewhere you can get warm," she heard herself say. The man studied her face, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "Why would you help me?" It was a fair question, one Lily couldn't fully answer herself. Perhaps it was the book peeking from his coat pocket, a worn copy of The Principles of Invention, or maybe it was simply that his eyes reminded her of her father's. Whatever the reason, Lily found herself extending a small, determined hand. "Because nobody else will," she replied with the simple wisdom of a child who had seen too much of the world's indifference. After a moment's hesitation, the man's weathered hand closed around hers. His palm burned with fever, but his grip was surprisingly strong. As Lily helped him to his feet, neither could have possibly known that this simple act of kindness, an orphaned girl helping a sick stranger on a cold Boston morning, would alter the course of both their lives forever. Lily had no way of knowing that beneath the layers of dirt and illness, past the tangled beard and haunted eyes, she was looking at Edison Bell, the reclusive genius whose revolutionary energy inventions had changed the world before he'd vanished without a trace 3 years ago. The same man whose face had graced the covers of scientific journals and whose mysterious disappearance had fueled countless conspiracy theories. And Edison Bell, fighting through the fog of fever, had no idea that the small, solemn-faced girl guiding him through the winding streets was about to become the one person who would give him a reason to emerge from hiding and face the demons that had driven him into the shadows. The journey to Lily's hiding place was slow and painful. Every few steps, Edison would stumble, his breath coming in ragged gasps that crystallized in the frigid air. Lily bore his weight as best she could, her small frame straining under the burden of a grown man. Several times they had to stop, huddling in doorways while Edison fought against the coughing fits that doubled him over. Not much further now, Lily encouraged, though in truth the abandoned building that served as her shelter was still several blocks away. She'd never brought anyone there before. It was her sanctuary, her one safe place in a world that had offered precious few. But something about this man's desperation spoke to her. Perhaps it was recognition of a kindred spirit, someone else who had fallen through the cracks of society. When they finally reached the dilapidated brick building, once a textile factory according to the faded sign, Lily guided Edison through a narrow gap in the boards covering a ground-floor window. The interior was dark and smelled of dust and neglect, but it was dry and sheltered from the wind that had picked up considerably during their journey. "Home sweet home," Lily murmured with a hint of defensive pride as she helped Edison navigate around piles of debris. She led him up a metal staircase that groaned beneath their weight, then down a corridor to what had once been an office. This was her domain, a space she had painstakingly cleaned and furnished with salvaged treasures. A mattress rescued from a curb lay in one corner, covered with relatively clean blankets. Plastic milk crates served as shelves, holding carefully arranged books, a few articles of clothing, and small trinkets, the modest collection of a child trying to create order in a chaotic world. A collection of empty bottles stood in neat rows, filled with water from public bathrooms. In the center of the room, a makeshift table fashioned from a wooden cable spool held a candle stub, some crackers wrapped in paper, and a small notebook with a stubby pencil. "You live here? Alone?" Edison's voice held no judgment, only a quiet, pained understanding that made Lily's throat tighten. "It's better than the shelters," she replied, helping him to the mattress. "Nobody bothers me here." As Edison sank onto the mattress with a grateful sigh, Lily busied herself with practical matters, partly out of necessity, partly to avoid the uncomfortable intimacy of having a stranger in her private space. She lit the candle, casting the room in a warm, flickering glow, then rummaged through her meager supplies. "I have some water and aspirin," she offered, holding out 2 slightly grimy tablets and an old jam jar filled with water. "Stole the medicine from Walgreens last month. Never needed it myself." Edison accepted both with trembling hands. "Resourceful," he commented after swallowing the pills. "And generous." "Thank you," Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. "You need to rest. And get those wet clothes off. I have a blanket you can use." If Edison was surprised by the authoritative tone from someone so young, he didn't show it. Instead, he nodded wearily, already struggling with the buttons of his coat. His fingers, despite their elegance, seemed clumsy and uncoordinated. After watching his frustrating attempts, Lily stepped forward. "Let me," she said simply, brushing his hands aside to tackle the buttons herself. As she helped him remove the sodden coat, a small notebook tumbled from an inner pocket, falling open to reveal pages of intricate diagrams and cramped handwriting. Lily picked it up, curiosity momentarily overriding her usual respect for others' privacy. "Don't!" The sharpness in Edison's voice made her jump. He snatched the notebook from her hands, his expression a complex mixture of fear and defensiveness that quickly melted into shame at his outburst. "I'm sorry. It's just private." Lily stepped back, recognizing boundaries. She had plenty of her own. "It's okay. I shouldn't have looked." An uncomfortable silence fell between them as Edison carefully tucked the notebook back into his coat pocket. Then, as if seeking to make amends, he spoke softly. "They're inventions. Ideas. Nothing important." Lily nodded, though she'd seen enough to know he was lying. The diagrams had been detailed and complex, definitely not the doodles of an ordinary person. But everyone had secrets, and she respected that better than most. "You should sleep," she said finally, handing him her cleanest blanket. "I'll be back later with some food." Edison's eyelids were already drooping, the combination of fever and exhaustion overtaking him. "Why are you doing this?" he mumbled as he sank back onto the mattress. "Why help me?" Lily paused at the doorway, considering the question. It was one she'd been asking herself since the moment she'd stopped beside him on the street. The answer came to her with surprising clarity. "Because once somebody should have helped me," she said quietly. "And nobody did." Before Edison could respond, she slipped out, leaving him to fall into a restless, fever-induced sleep. As she made her way back down the creaking stairs, Lily wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Trusting was dangerous. Caring was worse. She'd learned that lesson through bitter experience. And yet, something about the man's eyes, the intelligence behind the fever, the dignity beneath the dirt, had awakened something she'd thought long dead, the simple human desire to connect. Edison's fever raged for 2 days. Lily scavenged what she could, more aspirin from an unattended pharmacy counter, a cheap thermometer from a dollar store, soup from a church kitchen that served the homeless on Thursdays. Between her trips for supplies, she sat beside the sick man, replacing the damp cloth on his forehead and occasionally holding a cup of water to his parched lips. During his more lucid moments, Edison would watch her with puzzled wonder, as if trying to solve a complex equation. "What's your name?" he finally asked during a brief period of clarity. "Lily. Lily Morgan." She rarely gave her full name to anyone, but something about his direct gaze made lying seem pointless. "Lily," he repeated, testing the name. "Like the flower. Beautiful but tough enough to grow almost anywhere." "And you?" she asked, although she wasn't sure he'd answer truthfully. People on the streets rarely did. A heartbeat of hesitation. "Ed," he said finally. "You can call me Ed, not his full name," Lily noted. A partial truth, then. She could respect that. By the 3rd day, the fever began to break. Ed was able to sit up, to eat without assistance, to hold longer conversations, though he remained weak. As his strength gradually returned, Lily found herself opening up in ways she hadn't with anyone since before the fire. Perhaps it was because he asked questions that showed genuine interest rather than pity. Perhaps it was simply the relief of having someone to talk to after so many months of silence. "How long have you been on your own?" Ed asked as they shared a meal of bread and cheese Lily had purchased with money from returning collected bottles. 3 years, she replied, tearing her bread into small, careful pieces. "Since I was 9. Your parents?" "Dead. Apartment fire." The words were clipped, rehearsed from the many times she'd had to explain to social workers and foster parents. "I was at a sleepover. Came home to ashes." Ed didn't offer the usual platitudes. Instead, he nodded slowly, a depth of understanding in his eyes that suggested personal acquaintance with loss. "And after?" "Foster care. 2 homes. Neither worked out." Lily's tone made it clear this was all the explanation she cared to give on that subject. "Been on my own since I ran away from the second one. Social services looked for a while, but..." She shrugged. "I'm good at not being found." "Clearly," Ed agreed, glancing around at her well-organized hideaway. "You're remarkably self-sufficient for someone so young." Lily bristled slightly at his tone. "Age doesn't mean much on the streets. You either learn fast or you don't make it." "I didn't mean it as criticism," Ed clarified gently. "It was admiration. Most adults couldn't manage what you have." His sincerity disarmed her, and Lily felt a flush of unexpected pleasure at the praise. To hide her reaction, she turned the conversation back to him. "What about you? You haven't always been..." She gestured vaguely, not wanting to say homeless or on the streets, labels she rejected for herself as well. Ed's expression closed slightly. "No, not always. What did you do? Before?" His long fingers traced patterns on the wooden spool between them, complex spirals and interconnected circles that seemed deliberate rather than random. "I built things," he said after a long pause. "Solved problems." "What kind of things?" The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Machines, mostly. Ways to make energy cleaner, more efficient." His voice took on a different quality when he spoke of his work, more animated, hints of passion breaking through the carefully maintained reserve. "Like a mechanic? More like an inventor." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "Is that what's in your notebook? Inventions?" Ed's hand instinctively moved to his coat pocket, where the notebook remained securely hidden. "Yes," he admitted. "Old ideas. Nothing that matters anymore." The way his shoulders hunched told Lily she'd ventured onto dangerous ground. She recognized the signs, the protective curl of his body, the carefully neutral expression that masked deeper emotions. She had her own forbidden topics, after all. The battered teddy bear hidden beneath her pillow, the charred photograph she kept wrapped in plastic. Some wounds were too deep to probe. "You should rest more," she said, changing the subject. "You're still weak." Ed nodded, clearly relieved at the shift in conversation. As he settled back onto the mattress, he reached out unexpectedly, his fingers lightly touching Lily's small hand. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I wouldn't have survived without you, Lily Morgan." Something warm unfurled in Lily's chest, a feeling so long absent she almost didn't recognize it. It felt dangerously like attachment, like the precursor to caring. She pulled her hand away gently. "Get some sleep," she mumbled, retreating to her usual spot by the window where she kept watch over the street below. As darkness fell and Ed's breathing deepened into sleep, Lily allowed herself to study his face in the fading light. Even with the beard and the gauntness of recent illness, there was something familiar about his features. A nagging sense that she'd seen him before, perhaps on television or in a newspaper. The thought troubled her, though she couldn't say exactly why. Turning away, she pulled her knees to her chest and gazed out at the city lights blinking on across Boston. For the first time in months, the gnawing loneliness that had become her constant companion felt slightly less acute. The feeling was as comforting as it was terrifying. As days stretched into weeks, a tentative routine developed between them. Ed's strength returned gradually, though a persistent cough lingered. During daylight hours, Lily would venture out as usual, visiting the library, collecting bottles for the deposit money, occasionally helping the baker for leftover bread. But now she returned faithfully each evening, often with small treasures to share. A book she thought Ed might enjoy, an interesting mechanical gadget she'd found discarded, or sometimes simply news from the outside world. For his part, Ed began to contribute as his health improved. His clever hands repaired the broken window that had let in drafts, fashioned a more effective stove from discarded metal and cans, and even rigged a simple filtration system for their water. Yet, for all his practical ingenuity, he remained evasive about his past, changing the subject whenever Lily's questions strayed too close to his former life. She didn't press him. Street's people had reasons for their silence, and she respected the unspoken code. Still, curiosity nagged at her, especially when she would catch him writing furiously in his notebook late at night, his face illuminated by candlelight, lost in concentration so deep he seemed to forget her presence entirely. One evening in late January, Lily returned to find Ed holding something she immediately recognized, the small radio she kept hidden beneath her mattress. It had been her father's, salvaged from the apartment after the fire. Though it hadn't worked in years, she'd kept it as a tangible connection to her past life. "What are you doing with that?" Her voice came out sharper than intended, a flare of protective anger rising. Ed looked up, surprised by her tone. "I thought I might fix it for you. It just needs a new capacitor and—" He stopped, registering her expression. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone through your things." The apology deflated her anger somewhat. "It was my dad's," she explained, taking the radio from him carefully. "It doesn't matter if it works. I just need to keep it." Understanding softened Ed's features. "Of course." He hesitated, then added gently, "But I could fix it without changing how it looks. If you wanted to hear it play again." Lily traced the radio's scratched plastic case with her fingertip, memories washing over her. Sunday mornings with her father tuning into jazz stations, her mother playfully complaining about the noise. For a moment, the loss felt as fresh as the day it happened. "Maybe," she conceded finally. "But ask next time, before you touch my stuff." Ed nodded solemnly. "I promise." That evening, as wind-driven snow pelted against the windows, they sat closer than usual to share warmth. Ed had fashioned a small heater from various scavenged parts, but the bitter cold still permeated the old building. Huddled under shared blankets, a new intimacy crept into their conversation. "Tell me about your parents," Ed ventured cautiously. "If you want to, that is?" Lily stiffened initially, but the gentle rumble of his voice and the cocoon of warmth made the prospect of sharing less daunting than usual. "Mom was an art teacher," she began hesitantly. "She painted all the time, landscapes mostly. Dad worked for the city planning department. He liked figuring out how to make things better, traffic patterns, park layouts. They sound like good people," Ed offered when she fell silent. "They were Lily swallowed hard against the lump forming in her throat. Dad always said Mom was the creative one, but he was creative too, just in a different way. He could look at a problem and see solutions nobody else could. Like father, like daughter, Ed observed quietly. Lily glanced at him, surprised. What do you mean? I've watched you these past weeks. The way you navigate this city, how you've created this safe place, how you solve problems with limited resources. His expression was serious, respectful. That's a rare kind of intelligence, Lily. Creative problem solving. Your father would be proud. The words touched something deep and wounded inside her. For 3 years, Lily had existed, survived, but rarely received recognition for the intelligence and ingenuity that survival required. In the eyes of the world, she was just another homeless child, an object of pity or indifference. Ed's acknowledgement of her capabilities felt like water on parched soil. What about you? She asked, deflecting from the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Did your parents teach you how to build things? A shadow crossed Ed's face. My father, yes. He was demanding. Expected perfection. His fingers twined together in his lap, knuckles whitening. Nothing was ever good enough. But he taught me the fundamentals. The rest I learned on my own. And your mom? She died when I was young. I barely remember her. The words were clipped, factual, but Lily caught the subtle flinch that accompanied them. I'm sorry, she offered simply. Ed nodded once, acknowledgement rather than acceptance. Then, as if seeking to move past painful memories, he reached for his coat and withdrew the ever-present notebook. After a moment's hesitation, he opened it and slowly turned it toward Lily. I want to show you something, he said, his voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. Lily leaned closer, aware of the significance of this gesture from a man who had jealously guarded his privacy. The page revealed an intricate diagram, a complex arrangement of coils, circuits, and components she couldn't name. The margins were filled with equations and notations in Ed's precise handwriting. What is it? She asked, genuinely curious. A better way to capture and store solar energy, Ed explained, his voice taking on that animated quality it always did when he discussed his inventions. Current systems are inefficient. They lose most of the energy they collect. This design could triple efficiency while cutting production costs by half. His finger traced the central component of the diagram. This is the breakthrough, a new type of conductor that doesn't lose energy as heat. Pride and something like yearning colored his words. It could bring affordable clean energy to places that have none, change millions of lives. Lily studied the diagram, not understanding the technical aspects but clearly seeing the passion behind them. Why aren't you building it then? Instead of... She gestured around their makeshift shelter. Ed's expression closed like a door slamming shut. He closed the notebook with deliberate care. It's complicated. Try me, Lily challenged, tired of half-truths. I'm pretty smart, remember? A fleeting smile touched his lips before fading. It's not about intelligence, Lily. It's about safety. Safety? Ed stared into the small flame of their heater, his profile sharp in the dancing light. Some inventions make powerful people nervous, especially ones that might disrupt profitable industries. Understanding dawned slowly. Someone doesn't want you to build it? Someone wants what's in here. Ed tapped his temple, without me attached to it. His voice had gone flat, emotionless in a way that frightened Lily more than anger would have. 3 years ago I was warned. My lab was destroyed. A colleague who stood by me disappeared. The muscle in his jaw tightened. So I disappeared too. Lily absorbed this information, pieces falling into place. His reluctance to seek medical help despite his illness, his insistence on staying away from public places, the way he scanned every street before venturing out. He wasn't just homeless, he was hiding. Who are you really? She asked directly, her gaze steady on his face. The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Ed looked at her, really looked, as if assessing not just her trustworthiness, but her capacity to bear the weight of his truth. Someone who used to believe that good ideas always find a way, he finally answered. Someone who learned the hard way that innovation only matters if it serves the right interests. Bitterness tinged his words. My name is Edison Bell, though I doubt that means anything to you. But it did mean something. Lily's breath caught as recognition clicked into place. 3 years ago, the library had displayed a science magazine with his face on the cover. Younger, clean-shaven, but unmistakably the man sitting beside her now. The Edison of the 21st century, the headline had proclaimed. A genius whose inventions were revolutionizing renewable energy. You're the man who disappeared, she whispered. The one who invented the micro-generators. I saw you in a magazine once. Surprise flickered across Edison's face. You know who I am? I read? Lily reminded him with a small shrug. The library had articles about you. About how you vanished and nobody knew if you were dead or kidnapped or had simply run away. Edison finished, his voice hollow. Which is closer to the truth? Why? The question was simple but encompassed so much. Edison ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair, a gesture of frustration Lily had come to recognize. My last project, the one that would have made truly affordable clean energy possible, attracted the wrong kind of attention. Industrial sabotage at first, then threats. When those didn't work, he swallowed hard. My assistant Maria was driving my car. They thought it was me. The brake lines were cut. Horror washed over Lily. They killed her? To stop your invention? Energy is a trillion-dollar industry, Edison said flatly. My work threatened too many powerful interests. After Maria, his voice cracked slightly. I destroyed my prototypes, wiped my servers, and walked away. Let them think I was dead too. But you kept the plans, Lily said, nodding toward the notebook. I couldn't bring myself to destroy them completely. Selfish, perhaps. Dangerous, certainly. A humorless smile twisted his lips. 3 years hiding, moving constantly, staying off the grid. Then pneumonia finally did what corporate assassins couldn't. If you hadn't found me when you did, the implications hung in the air between them. Lily felt the weight of his confession, the trust it represented, the danger it potentially placed her in. Yet instead of fear, she felt an odd sense of purpose stirring within her. What if you could finish it? She asked suddenly. Your invention. What if you could build it somewhere safe? Edison shook his head sadly. There is no safe, Lily. Not for this. Not for me. But if there was, she persisted, would you? Something flickered in Edison's eyes, a brief rekindling of the passion that had driven him before fear had extinguished it. In a heartbeat. But it's a pointless hypothetical. Lily didn't argue further, but as they lapsed into silence, her mind raced with possibilities. For the first time since finding Edison Bell on that cold street corner, she began to wonder if their meeting had been mere chance, or something more like fate. February brought record cold to Boston, forcing Lily and Edison to venture out only when absolutely necessary. Their small sanctuary became a world unto itself, a place of shared meals, quiet conversations, and increasingly, shared purpose. Edison had fixed Lily's radio as promised, and now the gentle strains of jazz often filled their evenings, a bittersweet reminder of what Lily had lost, and a tenuous thread connecting them to the wider world beyond their walls. During those confined days, Edison began teaching Lily. It started simply enough, helping with the math problems in the workbooks she'd borrowed from the library, explaining scientific principles when she asked questions about his inventions. But it quickly evolved into something more comprehensive. Edison discovered in Lily a mind that absorbed knowledge with astonishing speed, intuitive, curious, and unhampered by conventional thinking. You see connections others miss, he told her one afternoon as she correctly identified the flaw in a circuit design he'd drawn. That's not something that can be taught. You either have that kind of vision or you don't. Lily ducked her head, unused to praise but quietly treasuring it. For his part, Edison seemed to come alive when teaching, the haunted look that often shadowed his eyes receding as he lost himself in explanations of physics, engineering principles, and the elegant mathematics that underpinned his inventions. Gradually, tentatively, he began sharing more details of his work with her. Not just the solar storage system, but other inventions, a water purification method that required no power, a heating system that captured and recycled ambient energy, a communications device that could function without traditional infrastructure, ideas that could transform life for those at the margins of society, people like Lily herself. Why focus on these? She asked one evening, gesturing to his notebooks which now lay open between them, no longer hidden away. You could have invented anything, made millions. Edison's expression turned contemplative. My father built weapons, he said after a long pause. Brilliant, innovative weapons that made him wealthy and respected. When I was 10, I saw a documentary about a village destroyed by one of his creations. Women, children, he swallowed hard. That night, I promised myself that anything I created would preserve life, not destroy it. Is that why they're afraid of your inventions? Because they help people instead of controlling them? Edison looked at her with a mixture of sadness and pride. You understand more at 12 than most adults ever will. As February melted into March, bringing the first hints of spring to the city, their discussions increasingly turned to practical possibilities. The what-if scenario Lily had raised began to take concrete shape between them. The hardest part would be getting access to a proper lab, Edison mused one evening, the conversation having moved from theoretical to practical, almost without either of them noticing. I'd need specialized equipment, materials, and a way to work without being discovered, Lily added, fully engaged in the problem-solving. What about MIT? Could we use their lab somehow? Edison stroked his beard, now neatly trimmed thanks to scissors Lily had borrowed from the public library. Too public, too many security protocols. His brow furrowed in concentration. But there might be another option. An old colleague, Andrew Chen, has a private research facility in western Massachusetts. If he's still there, if he's willing to help, do you trust him? The question gave Edison pause. I did once, before everything happened. Andrew wasn't involved in the energy sector. His work focused on medical applications. He might be safer. How would we contact him without exposing you? Edison smiled slightly at her use of we, a shift neither of them had explicitly acknowledged, but which had become fact nonetheless. That's the problem. Any electronic communication could be monitored. And I can't exactly walk into his facility. Lily's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. But I could. Absolutely not. Edison's response was immediate and firm. I won't put you at risk. I'm not at risk, Lily countered. Nobody's looking for me. Nobody would connect me to you. I could be your messenger. Lily, these people are dangerous. I'm not afraid, she interrupted, a fierce determination hardening her young features. All my life I've been invisible, to foster parents who saw a paycheck instead of a person, to social workers with too many cases, to people who walk past kids like me on the street. For once, that invisibility could actually matter. Edison studied her face, conflicting emotions warring in his expression. It's too dangerous, he repeated, but with less conviction. More dangerous than living on the streets alone? More dangerous than freezing or starving? Lily's voice rose slightly. You've been teaching me all these things, showing me how your inventions could help people. What's the point if they never leave your notebook? The challenge hung between them. Edison closed his eyes briefly, his shoulders sagging as if under an invisible weight. When he looked at Lily again, something had shifted in his gaze, a recognition perhaps that the girl before him was no longer simply a child he was obligated to protect, but a partner in a shared mission. If, and I mean if, we were to attempt this, he said carefully, we would need a plan. A very detailed plan with contingencies for everything that could go wrong. Lily's heart leapt, though she maintained a serious expression. I'm good at plans. And you would follow my instructions exactly. No improvising. I can do that, Edison sighed, a mixture of resignation and something like hope. Andrew always worked late on Fridays. If his habits haven't changed. He trailed off, then shook his head as if clearing away doubts. We're really considering this, aren't we? Lily nodded, a strange exhilaration building within her. For 3 years, she had focused solely on survival, each day a exercise in simply making it to the next. Now, suddenly, there was purpose beyond mere existence, something that mattered beyond herself. We are, she confirmed quietly. And we're going to succeed. Edison's smile was tentative but real, perhaps the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Your confidence is either madness or brilliance. I'm not sure which. Maybe both, Lily suggested, returning his smile with one of her own. You're the genius inventor. I'm the street-smart kid. Together, we might actually have a chance. As the plan began to take shape between them, tentative at first, then with increasing detail and conviction, neither fully acknowledged the deeper transformation occurring. The Orphan and the Inventor, each broken in their own way, each surviving on the margins of society, had found in each other not just assistance or companionship, but a reflection of their own resilience. And with that recognition came something neither had dared hope for, a fragile sense of belonging. The journey to Andrew Chen's research facility in Amherst required careful planning. Using the small amount of money they'd saved, mostly from Lily's bottle collecting and Edison's repair work for a few trusted neighborhood businesses, they purchased a bus ticket for Lily. Edison, still too recognizable despite his changed appearance, would remain behind. The night before her departure, Lily could barely contain her nervous energy. She packed and repacked the small backpack containing Edison's carefully written letter to Andrew, along with one of his notebooks that contained proof of his identity. Remember, Edison instructed for perhaps the 10th time that evening, give these only to Andrew personally. If he's not there, or if anything seems wrong, you turn around and come straight back. I know, Lily replied, trying not to show her irritation at the repeated warnings. We've been over this 100 times. Edison ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as his response to anxiety. I shouldn't be letting you do this. It's too much responsibility for someone your age. I've been taking care of myself for 3 years, Lily reminded him. I think I can handle delivering a letter. This is different. Edison's voice was tight with worry. If the wrong people connect you to me, they won't. Lily interrupted confidently. I'm just a kid visiting a science museum that happens to be near the research center. Nobody will look twice at me. Edison didn't appear convinced, but he nodded reluctantly. If Andrew agrees to help, he'll give you a secure phone. The number to reach me is memorized? 617-555-0142, Lily recited dutifully. I won't write it down. I won't tell anyone else, and I'll only use it once to confirm whether he's in or out. And if anything feels wrong, I walk away immediately, she finished. Edison, I promise I'll be careful. The use of his full name, something she'd only done a handful of times since learning his identity, seemed to emphasize the solemnity of her promise. Edison studied her face for a long moment, then did something that surprised them both. He pulled her into a quick, fierce hug. Be safe, he murmured against her hair. That matters more than anything else. Lily stiffened initially, unused to physical affection after so many years without it. Then, slowly, she relaxed into the embrace, allowing herself to absorb the warmth and concern it conveyed. I will, she whispered back. The following morning dawned clear and cool, a perfect spring day that seemed at odds with the tension Lily felt as she prepared to leave. Edison walked her as far as he dared, to a corner 2 blocks from the bus station where they wouldn't be noticed together. 12 hours, he said, checking his watch. If I don't hear from you by then, I'll... He trailed off, both of them aware there was little he could actually do without exposing himself. This realization seemed to intensify his anxiety. I'll call, Lily assured him. One way or another. With a final nod, Edison stepped back, his expression a complex mixture of pride, worry, and something deeper that Lily couldn't quite name. She squared her shoulders, adjusted her backpack, and turned toward the bus station, feeling his eyes on her back until she rounded the corner. The 3-hour journey westward gave Lily plenty of time to rehearse her approach. According to Edison's information, Andrew Chen's facility was set back from the main road, with a security gate and guardhouse at the entrance. Directly obtaining access there would be impossible. Instead, Lily would visit the nearby science museum, which backed onto the same property. From there, a maintenance path connected the 2 facilities, a route Edison remembered from his previous visits to his colleague. As the bus pulled into Amherst, Lily felt a curious blend of nervousness and exhilaration. Beyond the immediate mission, this was the first time she'd left Boston since the fire, the first time she'd traveled alone by choice rather than necessity. The newness of the experience helped distract from the weight of responsibility she carried. The Science Museum was busier than she'd expected, filled with school groups and families taking advantage of the pleasant spring weather. Lily paid the entrance fee with carefully counted dollars, then methodically worked her way through the exhibits, her eyes constantly scanning for the staff-only door Edison had described. She found it near the back of the geology exhibit, an unassuming door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Checking to ensure no one was watching, Lily slipped through with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to accessing prohibited places. The maintenance corridor beyond was dimly lit and smelled of cleaning supplies. Lily moved quickly, following Edison's directions until she reached an exit door that led to the museum's grounds. From there, she could see the sleek, modern building of Chen's research facility in the near distance, partially obscured by a line of trees. The path between the properties was overgrown but visible, clearly not frequently used but not entirely abandoned either. Lily made her way carefully, her heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and determination. When she reached the perimeter fence of the research center, she found exactly what Edison had predicted, a maintenance gate with a simple padlock. The code used to be Andrew's birthday, 0427, Edison had told her. He was oddly sentimental about such things, if he hasn't changed it. Lily's fingers trembled slightly as she rotated the digits on the combination lock. To her immense relief, the lock opened with a soft click. Slipping through the gate, she closed it carefully behind her, then made her way toward the main building, staying close to the tree line to avoid being seen from the windows. The employee entrance Edison had directed her to was at the rear of the facility, a door used primarily by lab technicians for smoke breaks, according to his memory. As Lily approached, she saw a woman exiting, a cigarette and lighter in hand. This was her chance. Summoning her most innocent expression, one she'd perfected when dealing with suspicious store clerks and concerned adults, Lily stepped forward. "Excuse me," she called, her voice deliberately higher and more childlike than her normal tone. "I'm supposed to give something to Dr. Chen. Is he here today?" The woman looked startled, then suspicious. "How did you get back here? This is a private facility." Lily widened her eyes, projecting confusion. "The lady at the front desk told me to come around to this door because the main entrance is being cleaned." The lie came easily, delivered with just the right note of uncertainty. The woman's suspicion wavered. "What do you need to give Dr. Chen?" "It's a letter," Lily explained, pulling the sealed envelope from her backpack. "My science teacher asked me to deliver it personally. It's really important." The mention of a teacher seemed to further disarm the woman's concerns. After a moment's hesitation, she sighed and held the door open. "Come on then. I'll take you to his office. But next time, don't listen to whoever told you to use this entrance. Visitors are supposed to check in at security." "Yes, ma'am. Thank you," Lily replied with perfect politeness, hiding her triumph as she followed the woman into the building. The interior of the research facility was a stark contrast to the abandoned factory Lily called home. All gleaming surfaces, state-of-the-art equipment, and the low hum of expensive machinery. She tried not to gawk as they passed laboratories where white-coated scientists bent over workstations or peered into microscopes. After navigating several corridors, they reached a door with a simple nameplate: Andrew Chen, Ph.D., Director of Research. The woman knocked briefly, then opened the door without waiting for a response. "Dr. Chen, there's a student here to see you. Says she has a letter from her teacher." Andrew Chen looked up from his computer, his expression mildly annoyed at the interruption. He was younger than Lily had expected, perhaps in his early 40s, with round glasses and a thoughtful face. "I don't have any appointments scheduled," he said, his tone polite but questioning. Before the woman could respond, Lily stepped forward, mustering all her courage. "It's about Edison Bell, sir," she said quietly. "I have a message from him." The effect of the name was immediate and dramatic. Chen's face went slack with shock, then rapidly cycled through disbelief, suspicion, and cautious hope. "Thank you, Jessica," he said to the woman, his voice carefully controlled. "I'll handle this." Once the door closed behind the departing employee, Chen turned his full attention to Lily, studying her with intense scrutiny. "That's quite a claim, young lady. Edison Bell disappeared 3 years ago. Most people believe he's dead." Lily met his gaze steadily. "He's not. He's in hiding. And he needs your help." Without waiting for a response, she withdrew both the letter and the notebook from her backpack and placed them on Chen's desk. "He said these would prove I'm telling the truth." Chen opened the notebook first, his eyes widening as he flipped through pages of familiar handwriting and distinctive technical drawings. When he unfolded the letter, his hands trembled slightly. Lily watched his expression as he read, saw the moment skepticism gave way to conviction. "My God," he breathed finally, looking up at Lily with new respect. "It really is from Ed. Where is he? Is he okay?" "He's safe," Lily answered cautiously, remembering Edison's warnings about revealing too much too quickly. "But he's been living rough. The people who tried to kill him, who did kill his assistant, they're still looking." Chen winced at the mention of the assistant. "Maria. Yes, that was terrible." He removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I tried to find Ed after he disappeared. We all did. When the trail went cold," he shook his head. "We assumed the worst. He couldn't risk contacting anyone," Lily explained. "He destroyed everything so they couldn't get his research. But he kept the plans." She tapped the notebook. "He wants to finish his work. He thinks you might help." "Of course I'll help," Chen responded immediately. "Whatever he needs." "But why send you? Who are you to him?" The question caught Lily off guard. In the focus on planning the mission, neither she nor Edison had prepared a specific explanation for their connection. I found him," she said finally, deciding that partial truth was safer than an elaborate lie. "He was sick on the street. I helped him. Now we're helping each other." Chen's expression softened as he looked at her more closely, perhaps truly seeing her for the first time, the careful neatness that couldn't quite hide the wear of her clothes, the thinness of her frame despite the determined set of her shoulders. "What's your name?" "Lily." Lily Morgan. Chen nodded slowly, as if committing the name to memory. Well, Lily Morgan, you've done something remarkable today. Bringing this to me, trusting me with this information, that took courage. He picked up Edison's letter again, scanning it with renewed focus. Ed wants to use my private lab facilities to complete his energy storage system. He looked up at Lily. Did he explain to you what this technology could do? Change everything, Lily replied simply. Make clean energy available to everyone, not just the rich. That's why they want to stop him. Yes. Chen's expression turned grim. The implications for certain industries would be disruptive, to put it mildly. He was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking through implications. My facility is private, but not invisible. If Ed works here, there's still risk. He knows that, but he thinks it's worth it. Chen studied her for another long moment, then seemed to come to a decision. He opened his desk drawer and removed a small, nondescript cell phone. This is a secure line, encrypted, untraceable. Ed will understand how to use it. He wrote a number on a slip of paper and handed both to Lily. Tell him to call me tonight. We'll arrange transportation for both of you. Lily took the phone and paper, carefully tucking them into her backpack. He only sent me to ask if you'd help. He didn't expect arrangements so soon. The sooner we move, the better, Chen said firmly. If Ed has resurfaced enough to send you to me, there's always a chance others might find him too. He hesitated, then asked more gently, Do you have family who will worry about you, Lily? People who need to know where you're going? The question brought a familiar ache to Lily's chest. No, sir. It's just me. Something like understanding flickered in Chen's eyes. I see. Then you'll come with Ed. If that's what you both want. The implication that she and Edison were a package deal, that her presence in his life was more than temporary, caught Lily by surprise. She'd been so focused on the immediate mission that she hadn't allowed herself to think beyond it, hadn't dared consider what might happen if they succeeded. I should get back, she said, avoiding a direct response to his assumption. He'll be worried. Chen nodded, rising from his desk. I'll walk you out the proper way, through the front entrance. It'll look more natural. A scientist taking time to speak with a student visitor. As they reached the door, he paused. Lily, one more thing. The work Ed wants to complete, it's important. More important than perhaps even he realizes, but it's not without risk. He knows that better than anyone, Lily replied. He's lived with that risk every day for 3 years. Yes, but now that risk extends to you as well. Chen's expression was solemn. Are you prepared for that? Lily thought about the abandoned building where she'd made her solitary home, about the cold nights and hungry days, about the emptiness that had been her constant companion, until a feverish man on a street corner had given her something she'd thought lost forever. Purpose. I've been invisible my whole life, Doctor. Chen, she said quietly, if being seen means being part of something that matters, then yes, I'm prepared. Chen studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I can see why Ed trusts you, he said simply, and opened the door. The return journey to Boston seemed to take twice as long, Lily's mind racing with the implications of her successful mission. When she finally reached the familiar streets of her neighborhood, dusk was falling, casting long shadows between the buildings. Edison was waiting at their designated meeting spot, his face tight with worry. The moment he spotted her, relief washed over his features, softening the hard lines that had formed during her absence. For the first time, Lily fully registered how much older he looked than in those magazine photos. Not just the beard and longer hair, but the way hardship and fear had etched permanent marks around his eyes and mouth. You're back, he said simply, though the emotion behind those 2 words was anything but simple. Lily nodded, glancing around to ensure they weren't observed before speaking. He's in. Completely in. He gave me this. She pulled out the secure phone. He wants you to call tonight. He's already making arrangements for us. Edison's eyebrows rose in surprise. That's faster than I expected. Andrew was always decisive, but this is remarkable even for him. He seemed to think it was urgent. Lily explained as they began walking back toward their hiding place, that once I'd made contact, others might be able to trace you too. Edison frowned at this, his pace quickening slightly. Did anyone question you? Notice you? Just the woman who let me in the back door, but I told her my teacher sent me with a message. She believed me. Lily couldn't keep the pride from her voice. Doctor, Chen never doubted once he saw your notebook. He recognized your handwriting immediately. As they reached the abandoned factory and slipped inside through their usual entrance, Edison finally allowed himself to relax slightly. In the privacy of their makeshift home, he examined the phone Chen had provided, his expression growing more hopeful with each passing minute. "This is military-grade encryption," he murmured, inspecting the device. "Andrew always did have connections in interesting places. He said you'd know how to use it." Edison nodded absently, already focused on the technical aspects of the device. "I do. This will allow us to communicate securely." He looked up at Lily, a question forming in his eyes. "Chen mentioned arrangements for us. Did he assume you were coming too?" Lily busied herself with unpacking her backpack, avoiding Edison's gaze. "He asked if I had family who would worry. I told him no." She shrugged, aiming for nonchalance. "He said I should come with you, if that's what we both want." A weighted silence followed her words. When Lily finally looked up, Edison was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite interpret, something between guilt, affection, and uncertainty. "Lily," he began carefully, "what I'm doing, what I'm about to do, it comes with real danger. I've lived with that reality for years, made my peace with it. But you," he trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. "I'm already in danger," Lily pointed out pragmatically. "Kids on the street don't exactly have great life expectancies. At least this way the danger means something." Edison winced at her bluntness. "You deserve better than that calculation. A real home, education, safety. And who's going to provide those things?" Lily interrupted, a sudden flare of emotion breaking through her practiced composure. "The system that's failed me repeatedly? Another foster family that sees me as a monthly check? Or maybe you think I should just turn myself into social services and hope for the best this time?" Her voice had risen, carrying a weight of bitterness that surprised even her. Edison seemed taken aback by the outburst, his eyes widening slightly. "I don't have good options," Lily continued more quietly. "I never have. But working with you, helping with something that actually matters, that's the best choice I've had in 3 years." Edison was silent for a long moment, considering her words with the same careful attention he gave to complex engineering problems. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Then we do this together," he said, his voice carrying the weight of commitment. "Partners." The word hung between them, simple yet profound in its implications. Not charity, not obligation, but mutual respect and shared purpose. Lily felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. "Partners," she agreed, the faintest smile touching her lips. That night, while Lily pretended to sleep, Edison made the call to Andrew Chen. Though he spoke in hushed tones, the small space allowed her to catch fragments of the conversation. Technical details about lab requirements, security protocols, transportation arrangements. The familiar excitement in Edison's voice when discussing his work was now tinged with something new, a cautious hope that had been absent in all their previous conversations. When he finally ended the call, Edison sat in silence for several minutes, staring at the secure phone as if it might vanish if he looked away. Lily watched through half-closed eyes as he eventually reached for his notebook, opening it to a fresh page. With renewed purpose, his pencil began moving across the paper, not in the furtive, guarded way he'd sketched before, but with confidence and clarity, as if finally allowing himself to believe his ideas might once again take physical form. In that moment, watching the transformation in her companion, Lily felt her own quiet revelation. The orphan who had helped a sick man on the street had found something she hadn't been looking for, not just purpose, but belonging. Whatever came next, whatever risks lay ahead, they would face them not as isolated survivors, but as something neither had been for a very long time, part of a family, however unconventional it might be. The journey to Andrew Chen's facility took place 3 days later, under the cover of night. A nondescript van with tinted windows collected them from a prearranged location. Not Chen himself, but a trusted security employee who asked no questions and offered no conversation during the 3-hour drive. Lily watched Edison throughout the journey, noting the complex emotions that played across his face as they left Boston behind. For her, the city held memories of both loss and survival. For him, it had been a prison of anonymity, a place to hide, to become invisible. Now, as the urban landscape gave way to darkened countryside, both were venturing into uncertain territory. "Nervous?" she asked quietly, breaking the silence that had settled between them. Edison glanced at her, a rueful smile touching his lips. "Terrified," he admitted, "but also alive. I haven't felt this way in 3 years." Lily understood. Despite her own apprehension, there was an undeniable exhilaration in forward movement after so long in stasis. For the first time since the fire, she was moving toward something rather than away. The research facility looked different in darkness, more fortress than laboratory, with its perimeter security lights and camera-equipped fencing. They were admitted through a service entrance, the van pulling into an underground parking garage where Andrew Chen waited alone. The reunion between the two scientists was a study in contrasts: Chen's evident shock at Edison's weathered appearance, Edison's wariness gradually giving way to genuine warmth as he embraced his former colleague. Lily hung back, suddenly feeling like an outsider witnessing a connection that predated her involvement. "You look like hell, Ed," Chen said bluntly after pulling back from the embrace. Edison gave a short laugh, the first Lily had ever heard from him. 3 years of looking over your shoulder will do that. Chen's gaze shifted to Lily, his expression softening. "And this must be your guardian angel." Edison nodded, extending his hand to Lily in a gesture that closed the distance she'd been maintaining. "Without Lily, I wouldn't be here. Probably wouldn't be anywhere." The simple acknowledgement warmed something inside her, and Lily stepped forward to join them, accepting Chen's outstretched hand. "Thank you for helping us," she said formally, falling back on the politeness that had been her armor in dealing with adults. "The honor is mine," Chen replied with equal formality, though his eyes twinkled slightly. "Now let's get you both settled. You must be exhausted." The accommodations Chen had arranged exceeded anything Lily could have imagined. A fully furnished apartment attached to the research facility, with 2 bedrooms, a well-stocked kitchen, and modern amenities that seemed almost surreal after months in an abandoned factory. She stood in the doorway of her assigned room, overwhelmed by the plush carpet, the queen-sized bed with its mountain of pillows, the desk equipped with a laptop and reading lamp. "Is it all right?" Edison asked from behind her, his voice uncertain. Lily nodded wordlessly, unable to articulate the strange mixture of gratitude and displacement she felt. This room, larger than any she'd had even before the fire, represented a level of security she'd stopped allowing herself to imagine. The sudden transition from survival to comfort left her feeling oddly untethered. "It's perfect," she managed finally. "Just different." Edison's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a gesture of understanding that required no further explanation. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a big day." That night, lying in a bed that felt too soft after years of makeshift sleeping arrangements, Lily stared at the unfamiliar ceiling and tried to process the rapid changes in her circumstances. 3 weeks ago, she had been alone, focused solely on day-to-day survival. Now she was part of something larger. A mission with purpose, a partnership with someone who valued her contributions, a future that extended beyond the next meal or safe place to sleep. The thought should have been comforting, but with it came a new kind of anxiety. What if she wasn't enough? What if her lack of formal education, her youth, her limited experience made her a liability rather than an asset? What if Edison, surrounded once again by brilliant colleagues and proper resources, no longer needed what she could offer? These thoughts followed her into uneasy dreams, where she searched endless corridors for a place to belong, always one step behind figures who moved just beyond her reach. Morning brought clarity and purpose with the rising sun. Lily emerged from her room to find Edison already awake, bent over schematics spread across the apartment's dining table, a half-empty coffee mug at his elbow. The sight was so reminiscent of their days in the abandoned factory, Edison lost in his work, surrounded by ideas taking shape, that some of her anxiety eased immediately. He looked up as she approached, his face alight with an energy she recognized from their best moments together. "Lily!" Perfect timing. "I need your perspective on something." Just like that, without fanfare or transition, they fell back into their familiar pattern. Edison explaining a technical challenge, Lily asking questions that sometimes revealed perspectives he hadn't considered, the two of them building on each other's thoughts until a solution emerged. By the time Andrew Chen arrived to escort them to the main laboratory, they were deep in discussion about modifications to the energy storage system's core components. Chen observed their interaction with evident fascination. "You two have developed quite the shorthand," he commented as they walked through the secure corridors toward the research wing. Edison nodded, his hand resting lightly on Lily's shoulder, a gesture that had become natural between them. Lily has an intuitive understanding of systems that most engineers spend years developing. She sees connections I miss. The simple praise, delivered as statement of fact rather than condescension, warmed Lily from within. In Edison's eyes, her contributions weren't surprising despite her age. They were valuable because of the unique perspective her life experiences had given her. The laboratory Chen had prepared took Lily's breath away, a vast space filled with equipment she recognized from Edison's descriptions, materials organized with meticulous care, workstations equipped with the latest technology. After years of working with salvaged parts and makeshift tools, Edison looked momentarily overwhelmed by the resources now at his disposal. "I kept up with your work even after you disappeared," Chen explained as he guided them through the facility. "Collected the equipment I thought you'd need if you ever resurfaced. Some of this came from your old lab. I managed to salvage it before everything was liquidated." Edison ran his fingers over a particular microscope with evident emotion. "My father gave me this when I earned my first doctorate. I thought it was lost with everything else. I may have bent a few ethical rules acquiring certain items," Chen admitted with a small smile. "But I never believed you were gone for good, Eddie. Just waiting for the right moment to finish what you started." For the next several days, Lily watched as Edison Bell returned to his element. The transformation was remarkable, the haunted, wary man from the streets gradually replaced by the brilliant inventor she'd glimpsed in fragments during their time together. His hands moved with confident precision among the equipment, his mind worked with renewed clarity, and occasionally, she even heard him humming softly as he worked, a sign of contentment she'd never witnessed before. Though surrounded by state-of-the-art technology and assisted by Chen's small team of trusted researchers, Edison still sought Lily's input regularly. Each morning, he would walk her through the previous day's progress, explaining challenges and breakthroughs in terms she could understand. Each evening, they would review the next day's goals together in their shared apartment, Edison often asking questions that encouraged her to offer perspectives his scientifically trained mind might overlook. "The theory is sound," he explained one night, pointing to complex equations that represented the core of his energy storage system. "But implementation requires thinking beyond theoretical physics. How would this work for someone without technical training? How could we make this accessible to communities without infrastructure?" These were questions where Lily's experiences proved invaluable, her years of improvisation and survival giving her insights into practical applications that complemented Edison's theoretical brilliance. Together, they refined designs, simplified components, and gradually transformed abstract concepts into concrete prototypes. As weeks stretched into months, the project progressed with remarkable speed. The energy storage system, once just elegant drawings in Edison's notebook, began taking physical form. First as separate components tested individually, then as interconnected systems demonstrating increasingly promising results. Lily absorbed knowledge at an astonishing rate, her natural intelligence flourishing with access to resources and mentorship from both Edison and Chen. Concurrently, another transformation was occurring, one less visible but equally significant. The makeshift partnership formed in desperation was evolving into something deeper. Edison, who had isolated himself from human connection as a survival strategy, gradually lowered his carefully constructed defenses. Lily, who had learned early that attachment led to abandonment, slowly allowed herself to trust in stability. Small changes marked this evolution. Edison teaching Lily to play chess in the evenings, Lily sharing stories from books she was reading, meals prepared together rather than eaten separately, laughter that came more easily and lingered longer. Neither acknowledged this shift directly, perhaps fearing that naming it might somehow jeopardize its fragile growth. Andrew Chen observed the developing bond with quiet approval, making arrangements that supported it without comment. When he noticed Lily's voracious reading habits, the facility's library was suddenly accessible to her at all hours. When he discovered her aptitude for mathematics, advanced textbooks appeared in her room. When Edison mentioned offhandedly that Lily had never had proper schooling, Chen introduced her to his wife, a retired educator who offered to provide structured learning 3 afternoons a week. "She's extraordinary," Chen commented to Edison one evening as they watched Lily absorbed in an engineering problem at a nearby workstation. "Her mind works differently, sees patterns most trained scientists miss." Edison nodded, pride evident in his expression. "Imagine what she might accomplish with the right opportunities." "Have you considered that?" Chen asked carefully. "Her future, I mean. She can't live in a research facility forever." The question brought Edison up short, forcing him to confront something he'd been avoiding. In the focused intensity of their work, the future beyond the immediate project had remained conveniently undefined. "I haven't," Edison began, then stopped, reconsidering. "That's not true. I have thought about it. I just haven't known what to do." He looked at his colleague with uncharacteristic vulnerability. "What are my options, Andrew? I'm still legally dead. Still a target for people who would rather see my work buried. What kind of future can I offer her?" Chen considered this thoughtfully. Perhaps the question isn't what future you can offer, but what future you both want to build. Before Edison could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility, a harsh, pulsing sound that instantly transformed the atmosphere from contemplative to urgent. Security monitors throughout the lab flashed red, displaying a breach at the main gate. Chen moved immediately to a computer terminal, typing rapidly to access security feeds. "Perimeter breach at 2 points," he reported tensely. "Professional, coordinated, not random intruders." Edison's face drained of color. "They found us." "How?" Chen demanded, already activating emergency protocols that sealed laboratory sections and secured sensitive data. "It doesn't matter how," Edison replied grimly, his eyes searching for Lily among the confusion of researchers rushing to secure equipment. Finding her, he moved quickly to her side. "We need to activate the contingency plan." The contingency plan, developed during their first week at the facility but never expected to be needed, had been Edison's insistence. Chen had provided a secure exit route, emergency supplies, and transportation options that could be activated with minimal notice. At the time, Lily had viewed these preparations as an extension of Edison's habitual caution. Now, as alarms continued to blare and security feeds showed armed figures methodically advancing through the facility's outer defenses, that foresight seemed prescient. "Follow me," Chen instructed, leading them through a series of corridors toward the facility's east wing. "The prototype? Leave it," Edison interrupted firmly. "The plans are more important than the hardware." Chen nodded grimly, understanding the priority. "My security team will buy us time, but not much. We need to move quickly." As they hurried through increasingly narrow passages, Lily felt a terrible sense of déjà vu, once again fleeing, once again leaving safety behind, once again facing an uncertain future. The difference, she realized with sudden clarity, was that this time she wasn't alone. Whatever came next, she would face it with Edison beside her. They reached a nondescript storage room where Chen entered a code into a keypad hidden behind a panel. A section of wall slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel illuminated by emergency lighting. "This leads to a garage half a mile from the main facility," Chen explained rapidly. "There's a vehicle waiting, untraceable, full tank of gas, supplies in the trunk." He pressed a small device into Edison's hand. "Secure phone. My private line is programmed in. Contact me when you're safe." Edison gripped his colleague's shoulder. "Andrew, they'll know you helped us." "I have contingencies of my own," Chen replied with a tight smile. "Plausible deniability, powerful friends? I'll be fine." The sound of distant gunfire added urgency to their exchange. Chen looked at Lily, his expression softening momentarily. "Take care of him," he said simply. "He needs you more than he knows." Before she could respond, Chen turned back to Edison, handing him a final item, a small hard drive. "Everything we've accomplished. All the data, all the designs. It's ready for the world when you are." Edison accepted the drive with reverent care, understanding its significance. 3 years of hiding, months of intensive work, the potential to transform global energy systems, all contained in a device small enough to fit in his palm. "Go," Chen urged, already turning back toward the laboratory. "I'll seal this entrance behind you." Edison hesitated only briefly before pulling his friend into a quick, fierce embrace. "Thank you isn't enough. Change the world," Chen replied simply. "That'll be thanks enough." With a final nod, Edison turned to Lily, extending his hand. "Ready, partner?" Despite the danger, despite the alarms still blaring and the uncertain future stretching before them, Lily felt a surge of determination as she placed her hand in his. "Ready?" Together they entered the tunnel, the hidden door sliding closed behind them with a final, definitive click. As they moved forward through the narrow passage, Lily felt Edison's grip tighten slightly on her hand. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over their hurried footsteps. "This isn't the stability you deserve." "I never wanted stability," Lily replied with sudden insight. "I wanted purpose." "And belonging?" She squeezed his hand in return. "I found both with you," Edison looked down at her, surprise and something deeper reflected in his eyes. In that moment, despite the circumstances, a wordless understanding passed between them, a recognition that what had begun as a chance encounter between an orphan and a sick man on the street had evolved into something neither had dared hope for: family. "Where do we go now?" Lily asked as they neared the tunnel's end. Edison's expression shifted from uncertainty to resolve. "Forward," he answered with newfound clarity. "We take what we've created and find a way to share it with the world, not through traditional channels they can block, but directly to the people who need it most." The audacity of the plan should have been frightening, but Lily found herself nodding, a sense of rightness settling over her. "Together, always," Edison promised as they reached the exit, poised on the threshold of their next chapter. Partners. And with that single word, encompassing all they had been to each other and all they might yet become, they stepped forward into the light, no longer hiding but purposefully visible, carrying with them the potential to transform not just energy systems, but lives around the world. Behind them lay the identities they had once claimed: the orphan surviving on society's margins, the inventor hiding from powerful enemies. Ahead lay a different story entirely, one they would write together, one step at a time, their unique partnership forging a path neither could have navigated alone. In helping a sick man on the street, Lily Morgan had found not just a brilliant inventor in hiding, but her own brilliance reflected back at her. And in being helped by an orphan with nothing to offer but kindness, Edison Bell had rediscovered the courage to share his greatest gifts with a world desperately in need of both. Sometimes the most profound transformations begin with the simplest acts of human connection: a hand extended in kindness, accepted in trust, and held firmly through whatever challenges may come.